Switch is on.
We're good.
Never replaced.
Thank you. We are good. Welcome everyone to the Town of Vesuvius regular open meeting of Town Council, September the 14th, 2021, 2 p.m. in Council Chambers. We are joined by Councillor Harvey, who is joining us on Zoom. First up is the approval of the agenda and late items. And I would like to read an addition to that the regular open agenda of September 14th, 2021 be approved as amended with the permissive tax bylaw number 101373 2021, item number 4K be removed. And also, and that the in-camera agenda be, no, do I have to say that as well? And that the in-camera agenda of September the 14th also be closed under section 91E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements, if the council considers that disclosure would reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. So that is what we're going to remove K4. And I would like a motion, please, to move the regular open agenda be approved as amended. Thank you. Councillor Rhodes, Councillor King, all in favor. Thank you. Next is the adoption of some regular open minutes of August the 24th, 2021. Councillor Harvey, Councillor Rhodes. I know. All in favor. Thanks, everybody. And no business arising. And we will go down to skip the other things and go down to correspondence. And we have a letter from Vesuvius Rose Estate Winery. And that would be, here we are. Would we just accept? Did you want me to read this letter? It's in there. I wasn't quite sure. How would you like me to proceed?
Your worship, it's entirely up to council if they want to yes, attend to the request for extraterritorial service provision. They have requested a boundary extension for inclusion within the municipal boundary, and it and some other adjacent properties. Council's already endorsed the boundary extension application process. The administrative report has been submitted to the province for review. Typically, it then comes back and it may ask for a couple of more details, or it may say, okay, now you need to proceed to elector approval. It gets a little bit complicated if we start allowing extraterritorial service in advance of the conclusion of the boundary extension process. I do understand they're under some time pressures to get this done, but I guess the other complicating factor is council's recent approval of the extraterritorial service capacity east side of Vesuvius Lake service capacity analysis, and whether you want to start assigning additional water right ahead of that process. It's a little bit complicated. They're under the gun. They need to move out of the place that they're managing production from now in the spring of this year. But I'm concerned because I thought I had read, or at least had inferred, that they wanted to build some type of a temporary solution, which if I were them, I wouldn't want to be paying twice, one for a temporary solution and then one for the permanent solution that will have cost implications above and beyond.
So go ahead, Councillor King.
Yeah, I personally think it would be prudent to wait until after we have the study done. Not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, the timeline on the study, did you have an expectation? Was it
To move them to a year.
that soon? Okay. And if we hear back from the province about the boundary extension and they say it's good to go, council can approve if they want to go with the alternative approval process, the deadline for submission, the forms, we can publish it in the Gazette and in the newspaper. We can probably wrap that process up in a couple of months.
Just as a point of note here, thank you, CEO Chabot. the legislature will be sitting on October, again in October. So that's when they would start to make decisions on this, like, for example, the ones that are sitting down at the province.
Although the ones that need Lieutenant Governor and
That's
Council
correct.
approval is the ones that's already been through the AAP process.
That's correct. Correct, like so after the AAP process, then they need to go and move on to the next level, which.
So we've heard from one counselor. How do the rest of you feel? We could either have this just as accepted as correspondence. Or Councillor Rhodes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'd like to wait until the study was completed as well. There seems to be an assumption in the letter that we know exactly where this property is. I wonder if you could just refresh my memory. My vision of the city's Rose is out of it.
It's across from 45th Street in Petro, Canada.
Fernandez, Fruits Down.
No,
Oh, okay.
it's not the fruit
No, it's
stand.
not the fruit.
It's
stand.
adjacent.
It's the packing house
Yeah.
that was owned by Tom Fernandez.
Yeah.
I was confused about that too. I thought it was the fruit stand and it's not.
Well, that's right,
totally
it's
separate.
adjacent to.
Yeah, but it was owned by the Fernandez at one point.
And does that have anything to do with the new winery that's on the shore?
That's a separate boundary extension process that's before the provincial government for cabinet approval.
Okay, that's where I was thinking. So there's no connection between the two.
Just depends.
Yeah, so it sounds to me like it would be acceptable to hold off on looking at this until we have.
And we'll try to expedite these things, get them done as quickly as possible, because we realize it's uncertainty for them. and
Sure.
understand how-
Thank you. So Mrs. Hilton, am I just accepting this as correspondence? Is that how we would deal with this?
Motion to receive and hold in advance pending completion of the east side of the lake capacity analysis.
Very good.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Could you repeat that for Mrs. Hilton, please?
She got a shorthand.
Have you
She's
got it?
learning for that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So is there, yeah, okay, moved by Councillor Rhodes, seconded by Councillor Bennett, that we hold off until we get that done. Thank you very much. All right, next up, we have the Destination Vesuvius midterm report. Now, we happen to have the executive director here.
Yes,
I
Could,
don't think we voted on that.
pardon me,
I don't think we voted on that motion.
we didn't. I do apologize. Did we not vote on that motion? Oh, okay, all in favor. Thank you, that was carried. I guess I just assumed. Sorry, thanks. Okay, so could we, is it feasible to ask Kelly to speak to this?
I think that she came in case there was questions arising from
Okay.
council from the review of the report. It's pretty self-explanatory, but there are some, I guess, some nuance and some differences that the COVID-19 situation has created for our tourism industry, for their revenues, for their operations. When I received this, I noted that it was a part of one of the requirements of a fee for service agreement the town has. I just thought it was important that council officially received this. So I know and mark a milestone. I hadn't expected that this blazer would come, but if council has any questions, I think you'd be prepared to
Okay.
entertain them.
That would make it, go ahead, Councillor Bennett. You first.
I'd just like to make a couple comments on
Sure.
the report. Basically, there's a lot of stuff in there, and I know that basically Kelly, that we've done a great job over there, because there's a lot of stuff like tons of views, so Vesuvius is really getting on. Two destination Vesuvius, like Shop Vesuvius, 1,608 views, Dinah Vesuvius, 2,091 views, Castnet, 5,306 and 477 8 entries into a contest. Snowbirds over 6,137 views. They also, I think there's a really good cooperative marketing agreement now that's working between the South Okanagan, between Penticton and Oliver Regional District, Okanagan, Smokery, Narragansett, Summerland, Pinchland, and the Boundary Country Smokery Planning Committee wine growers. So I think the cooperators, they get a lot bigger advertising, can go a lot further. There's 29 media stories. And I think the one big thing is we have coordinated effort with Matt, with the town and DO, so the same message and press releases are going on. I think that's huge. So I just wanted to kind of I know everybody's read it, but I just kind of did a synopsis and things that I think are important.
Good, well, thank you. 'cause you're
If you have
on
any
the
questions,
board.
please ask.
Can I just say that my favorite thing is this kindness is contagious button. And I'm glad you didn't wear yours. He's adjusted it slightly. And it's, we have some here in the office. And I have mentioned this to several of the provincial ministers and mayors at one thing. And I told them if they came to Vesuvius, we could get them one of these buttons. So I think it's very appropriate for the pandemic that we've been through. So thank you very much for doing that. We appreciate it. And I do know that poor Ms. Glazer has had to deal with changes from not only the provincial government, but Interior Health, sometimes on a daily basis. So I certainly, that's one of the places that I go to get up-to-date information on the pandemic and what's allowed inside, outside, in buildings, that type of thing, because it can change very often. So we appreciate the fact that you're trying to keep that up to date.
Do our best.
Yeah. Is there anybody, go ahead, Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Member Cordova. I was going to do a motion to receive and have a comment. if we could.
Oh, absolutely. So is there someone else who would like to second that motion? Thank you, Councillor King. And before we vote on it, we'll let Councillor Rhodes have a word.
So not a criticism, this is a great report. I sometimes feel that it doesn't get the exposure that it should because there's lots of great information in there for the public to kind of look at. And I think it would be kind of naive of us to assume that everybody in town reads our council agendas, which is probably not true. Maybe a personal presentation would be better in the committee as a whole. I mean, I really like getting that, but it would just kind of bump it up a little bit. And I understand that, the agreement and all that kind of stuff that goes on with it. Just a personal presentation sometimes bumps it up and the exposure is a little
Yeah,
bit.
so your worship, as I said, you will be seeing this Glazer again, most likely at a committee of the whole, before the end of November. Part of the agreement is that we need to present an annual service plan and a budget. And here's our objectives for the next year. And it will reflect back upon the achievements of the current year as well. And so we will make sure that that continues to happen because you're right, a lot of really good information comes out. This was probably never done this way before, put on a council agenda. It was just my belief that I wanted it on the record that they complied with this requirement of the agreement. And if there was any questions, but the more detailed presentation after her board approves their work plan for the next year will come before the end of December or November.
Okay. Yeah, it was just a suggestion.
And
May I just make one comment?
Yeah.
This report in some way, shape or form in pieces and parts does go into our stakeholders newsletter, which admittedly is only about 400 people because they are direct tourism businesses. But we do try to get that information out as much as we can. But I agree that it would be great if we could find a more regular way for the average person in Vesuvius to understand the impacts of the organization and how it helps.
I can't remember, but I think it's very recently that Ms. Glazer did come to a COW meeting. But it wasn't a year ago, was it? I thought it was the spring of this year, wasn't it? That you did make, do you come every 6 months?
Well, since COVID, we've all lost our track of time, but I don't remember, but until COVID, I was always here. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
I would be here at least twice a year before
Yes.
COVID, yeah.
And I thought you had been here recently, but you're quite right.
Well, I
because
came to
lost track.
something at the
Yeah,
Sonora
I'm
Center,
meeting
but I
since
didn't
March
speak.
last year.
She did
No.
come virtually. She did
She,
attend.
no, she was here.
No,
Oh,
no,
she
she
did
did
it virtually,
virtual
one of them.
presentation.
You're right, it was virtual,
Yeah.
you're right, and
Yes.
that was in April, you're correct.
Right.
And that was to present our financials,
Right.
which is also part of the agreement, because that's your year end. Somebody's, not mine.
Ours is the end of the calendar year too.
Oh,
Okay,
Well, we
but I
should look
do
at that.
remember. Yes, you're quite right. And she gave a very good presentation. Okay, Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just see your sales are pretty well doubled from the previous year, but your tenant seems to be down. So what's the big selling items? Do you know off the top of your head?
selling in the gift center, is that what you're talking
The
about?
visitor center.
Yeah, you know, basically, the reason for the uptick is really about concentrated effort by the girls to promote. We put an online store during the first year of COVID,
Oh, good.
and that encouraged a lot of sales. And then because we have shopping parties, we had to cancel those. So we did different things, blogging. So we just tried different ways to get our sales up. But when the visitors were, like, they were cut off and then they were allowed and then they were cut off, we would get big sort of rushes of people and our sales would go sky high. But this month is usually a high sales month, and so we'll see what happens this month too.
So
But
you
the
are,
intent is for the sales to continue to grow over time. And so it's on track, I guess, is the best answer I have.
so most of your sales are in person, or I hear you get some sales.
Yeah, we
online?
do get a bit of online. What happens is people go online and then they come in,
Okay,
which
thank
is
you.
typical behavior.
Thank you. So any other questions or comments? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to receive the report. All in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you. So next is the Fortis BC nominate a local charity. Mr. Chabot, are you going to?
Yes, your worship, Mr. Davis isn't available today, so I'll read this report for you.
Okay. Oh, excuse me. Go ahead, Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, I think I will recuse myself from this particular item because I'm active and on the board at the sailing club, which is on the list.
Can you mute him then, just simply, and then
And
don't indicate any
And I
agreement,
think-
disagreement?
Okay. I won't participate.
Oh, okay, turn your video off, maybe.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Chabot.
Okay, at the last committee of the whole meeting on August the 24th, council received correspondence from Fortis BC asking local governments in the province to nominate appropriate organizations, agencies, and projects for their community giving awards. Council asked staff to develop a report with a list of local charities and projects that they could review in order to nominate a local charity for those awards. Each year, Fortis reaches out to members of the UBCM, asking for nominations of the most deserving organizations in their local communities. They're providing 3 grants of $15,000 each to support projects that would qualify. They're investing in projects that promote safety, education, the environment, and Indigenous initiatives. Staff reached out and contacted a number of local nonprofit groups, and have received 4 projects that may qualify, and there's a 5th one added as a late item as well. And that's a project by the Vesuvius Museum Society. So the 4 that were submitted were the Desert Park Exhibition Society asked for funding support to support their operations of the equine facility for the residents of the South Okanagan. The Vesuvius Food Bank asked for help with purchasing a small van with cooling capacity for pickup and delivery of food in the community. The Artists on Main looked for a grant to offset the costs associated with leasing additional space and the utilities and cost of renovating that space. And the Vesuvius Sailing Club asked for funding support for a cement walkway to make the picnic area more accessible at the clubhouse. The late item from the Museum Society, find it, your worship, was to be put towards completing construction and outfitting of a multi-purpose room on the lower level of the new building. Once complete, the room will be a public space available for school programs and community group meetings. The Vesuvius Rotary Club has pledged towards the construction of this room, and upon completion, they'll use the space for their weekly meetings. The grant from Fortis will contribute funds to complete construction and furnish the space with furniture, audiovisual equipment, and other necessities for meetings and presentations. So they've asked to be considered as well. There is additional information in the submissions that I won't read from the other 4 groups, but keeping in mind that what Fortis is looking to fund is projects that promote safety, education, the environment, and Indigenous initiatives. And so if council thinks one of those is a better fit than the others and would like staff to complete an application on behalf of that organization, we'd be happy to do so. So it's a good opportunity, and I think, there's perhaps a project or two in there that council thinks is worthy.
Thank you. I certainly think that all 5 of them are worthy projects, so might be a bit difficult. However, council, what would you suggest, Councillor Rhodes, and then?
Thank you, Carl. But just a question. I know it's just me, but I'm troubled with the word charity a little bit. I don't see any of these organizations getting that word. I know it can mean more than one thing, but I don't even know if that's an appropriate question or not. But
Well, their email that conveyed this says we reach out again to the members. We invite each of you to nominate a local charity deserving of. And so I guess different people might have different definitions of the word charity. I see charity as a group or an individual who does something on behalf of or for the benefit of others or the broader community. I don't think it's intended to be necessarily a strictly legal definition. Like you don't have to be a registered not-for-profit. You just need to be doing charitable works in your community.
Yeah, I looked at that as well and thought charity, nonprofit, do they mean the same thing? Because I wasn't quite sure, and I don't think they do. Go ahead, Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I support the museum's application. To me, that's the only one that fits the criteria the most for education, things like that. To build a sidewalk doesn't really do much, a van doesn't do much. I mean, they're all deserving, so don't get me wrong, but I think the one that actually meets the criteria the most is actually the museum. Because it will be used for educational purpose, and I think that's very important.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sort of looking at the city's food bank as a small van because they're picking up and delivering food to the community on food bank. And that's more kind of like a charity.
Go ahead, Councillor Rhodes.
just for clarity, how should we deal with this? Do you want to?
I think you do need to, and I think Councillor King's put the right lens on it and said that it needs to be one of the projects in the target areas that they've said they would be prepared to fund to increase the chances of success. I wasn't going to offer an opinion on these because I, like you, think they're all worthwhile initiatives, but what's a good fit with the program? And I would tend to agree that the educational community use aspect of the museum's defined project, rather than, they're not going to fund an operating expense for Desert Park, I don't think. They're not likely to undefined additional space for the Arts Council. So food bank doesn't really seem to fit. So that was my thought. I didn't really want to be.
So that would be my choice, the food bank, because it's the only one that clearly. And, I have a little bit of empathy. I know 2 individuals in this town that have never been recipients of that service. And they are now in need of it, families, with young families. And, without it, it seems to be a very charitable endeavor and a real benefit in our community. And I'm so glad that somebody has taken it on and members of our community are benefiting from it. So.
If I could,
Go
Your
ahead.
Worship, Mr. Davis has included in his report a partially complete application to Fortis. And they provide a little bit more information about what it is that they're targeting. How will the project benefit the community in the following categories? Safety is projects that promote natural gas and electrical safety, personal safety, and accident avoidance. Education, projects that promote natural gas and electrical trades, literacy, and leadership. Environment, projects that directly benefit the environment. Indigenous initiatives, projects that meet the unique needs of Indigenous communities. Then there's the other important community projects. So I guess you could select that in completing the application and try to build an argument for why one over another.
So I'll throw in my 2 bits worth. When I first looked at the list, I totally agreed that the Vesuvius Food Bank was a charity. to me, it is, and I think that, that it would be such a nice thing to have in order to pick up and deliver food, which is now done, I believe, by church members or certainly volunteers. And I think that I would definitely have to support that one as well. So is there someone who would like to make a motion about this? Go ahead, Councillor Rhodes.
Might need some wordsmithing, but I would make that a resolution.
The resolution to support these.
Vesuvius food banks.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Bennett is seconding that. All in favor? Okay, well, that's against. Okay. So, and we do not have a vote. So that was passed that the Vesuvius Food Bank would get the.
We'll get that completed into the deadline is Friday.
Thank you very much.
So Councillor King, you were opposed, just confirming.
Yes. All right, thank you.
Followed by Councillor Harvey back.
Yes.
Brian, you can unmute yourself and start your video.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Brownstein, you're next. The Legion Beach Washroom and Multi-Use Trail.
Thank you, Roger. In the package, you'll see some designs prepared by True Consulting in regards to the Legion Beach area, washroom, as well as the multi-use trail. The town was successful in getting the $700,000 from the Towards Independent Community Grant Program repurposed for the project. So you have provincial funding to move forward with what the intended scope was for Legion Beach and minus the road and parking lot upgrades. So as previously discussed with council, there was indication from the group that they wanted some further input in the washroom design and what that washroom will look like. We currently proposed a 4-season washroom designed to encompass 3 fully accessible washroom units, 1 with a shower, 1 standard washroom, and 2 accessible family change rooms, as well as 3 outdoor showers. The design for that is included in the package. Basically, what is being presented to council is 3 options. Either we go with option 1, which is the current design that is proposed to you guys. Option 2, which is design a facility that mirrors Goodman, which was brought to staff's attention by council, or 3, variation of option 1 or 2, as directed by council in a recommendation. And the recommendation currently is we move forward.
Thank you. I had to look at these drawings a few times to figure out where this washroom was going. I had it backwards and sideways and where's the underpass. So my assumption is, if I've got this right, it's sort of right at the end of the underpass, just beside that, rather than.
So the washroom is being proposed between the existing parking lot and soon to be demoed.
Oh,
pump
really?
station.
Isn't that interesting? I went through this several times and I thought it's very close and it's on that grassy area. Okay.
Yeah, me too.
My fault.
Well, no, that's all right. It's the drawings. I just kept looking back and forth to see where it was. Okay. So can I ask, at the same time that this would be done, is the old washroom, it was taken out?
The old washroom has been removed, your worship,
But
the old pump station will be removed within probably the next couple months.
Okay,
That
I
is a
wasn't
separate-
sure
that's a
that we
separate
had
project to
anybody
this.
wanting to do that the last time. Oh, we've got somebody now.
Yeah, we
Okay,
had the
thank you.
who's
Is
the
it
board
going to
member?
be taken out first
Yes.
before this one is, a
it'll
new one
probably
is
be
put
in
in?
conjunction with your worship.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question. If we go with 1, 2, and 3, basically it's gonna cost less for the washroom. What does that enhance as far as walkways or other projects? If we have 700,000, we only spend less and less, what are the extra enhancements that would go along with that?
We would have to take a look at that should council decide to go down a different path than what's being proposed. And what we could do with additional funding. However, I want to just put the caveat that it would be to Legion Beach and Legion Beach alone. We would be able to take that money and then go to
I understand.
Just to be clear though, is that any of these options includes the pathway.
Yes.
The lighting improvement,
Yeah.
so the council's being asked to select the option for the washroom, because that's what they seem to have concern about. But all the other things are gonna happen, regardless of which option you chose.
Yeah, the reason I asked that question is that if you go to option one, we go to the beautiful one and say, okay, let's spend all the money and it's got all that. If we went to option two, what else could we do in that park to enhance it?
Yeah, you were walking down a line of, it was a number of months to get provincial approval for scope change. Had to give them detailed engineering, design drawings, cost estimates and such. With a desired start date and a completion date on these grant funds as well, so we just sends us further down the road, makes it more risky.
But if I say, let's go to option two, then where's the extra money going versus option one?
Because it wouldn't cost as much.
Well, you'd either have to tell the province what we would use that extra money for, and they'd have to approve it, or they'd say we're gonna take some of it back.
So what's the difference between the cost on the three? Sorry, I'm not.
Yeah. So what would, option number one, which has been recommended, what is the cost on that one? Do we know?
To about 250,000.
With the entire project budget, utilizing all the 700.
Well, we're using we're utilizing the whole 700,000 within Legion Beach. Approximately $250,000 of that is just for the structure, which we're calling the washroom.
And option two would be
I'm not sure how Goodman costs, probably Goodman by about 130,000, 140,000.
And so the rest of it would be for trails and, or paths and lighting down there.
We may look at putting some additional furniture in or something like that within the scope that's already been presented.
Near a landscape.
So what happens if you don't use the 700,000? Is that what I think that's what Councillor Bennett was asking. Does it have to be returned to the province, or are you going to find a way?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, go ahead. Did you have a question?
I wouldn't mind, thank you, Mayor.
Okay,
for-
and then we will let the councillors have a.
Just,
yeah.
before we go option one or option two, which is, of course, I've made my comments before on this. I just want to remind council that, we will be seeing some quite a bit of increased density in the way of multifamily units going into that area. And I do anticipate you'll see a lot more visitors at that site over the years to come. So we're seeing some multifamily, like family type size multifamily, and then smaller single person or a couple units, multifamily developments going in there in the very near future. So I think that you'll see quite a few more visitors to that park, just to let you know. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess with the option one with the washroom, if the placement of it would be out of the way, if we ever found some more money to improve the parking lot, it wouldn't be an impact future development.
Thank you, Councilor King. No, this design that was presented to council took that original design and put a parking lot and realigned it to 89th and 62nd into it.
Okay, great, that's good.
Thank you. Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Madam Recorder. Is there a matching component to the grant? I need a memory refresh. So
No,
it's pure,
this is purely 100% funded by the province.
and are we in receipt of that money now?
Yes, we are.
Just a minute, I'll just check and see, is there anybody else? Okay, go ahead.
I'll move option one.
And it's now been seconded by Councillor Rhodes. Anybody else have any comments about this? No? All right, all in favor of option one?
Well done, Joe.
I'm sure.
I'm sure it should. It's all
Tell
good.
those guys.
Yeah.
I might get
Thank you,
teared up
Your
on that one too.
No, I think that's awesome. You
That's
can get the
fantastic.
approval to repurpose
Yeah,
those.
no, that's great.
Yeah, well done.
So, thank you, yes, thank you for getting the 700,000.
Yes,
You had to apply for that. So, do we have a start date on that?
ASAP, Your Worship. We need to show we've broken ground by the end of the year, so. I've
Okay.
already started the
Leave that up
process
to you.
forward.
Good, thank you very much. Now we have the airport. the OA, the Vesuvius Airport Development Society has a syrup grant. Is that, are you going to speak to this? Oh,
This is okay.
Ms. McKay.
Thank
Of
you,
course
Mayor
you are.
Reportoff.
Thank
And just a little background for you. At your October 19th, 2020 regular meeting, council resolved to support an application by the Vesuvius Airport Development Society, commonly referred to as CODES, to the Community Economic Recovery Infrastructure Program, or CERP, to improve the lands at 10400 Highway 3. So ODES did submit their application for funding to the province in November, and confirmation of their success with their application was received by Mr. Harris on behalf of ODES in February 25th, 2021. Then following confirmation of the grant funding, we, the town that is, retained the legal services to help us draft a construction management agreement, which it has been vetted through Vesuvius Airport Development Society, and they are in support of the proposed construction management agreement. So just a little bit of overview on that. The Vesuvius Airport Development Society will then be responsible for project management services, and a joint project committee, which would be made up of 2 members of the Vesuvius Airport Development Society, a member of the town staff, and a member of town council, yet to be appointed, of course, would be responsible for overseeing all the approvals and construction services. And then ODES would have the responsibility of managing the budget and reporting to the province as per the agreement that they have entered into with the province, which is also in your package. Project details and the corresponding budget are also outlined in the program, CERP program, and also in the management agreement. So of course, implications for the community benefits from improvements at the airstrip for commercial recreational uses. You might have noted when you had a look at the package that included a fueling station. Vesuvius Airport Development Society would also be responsible for managing all the contracts and overseeing the works. Proposed works would not have any impact on the town's budget. Significant dates, Vesuvius Airport Development Society is required to start this project no later than December 31st of this year. Sustainability, encouraging improvements, of course, to existing facilities and providing alternative access modes to the town is supported by the town's sustainability plan and of course tourism in our community. I was asked earlier one question that had to do with relocation of some of the fencing that may have been put in error, and just to confirm for that individual, the mayor, that on Schedule A of the project, item number 4 speaks to that, would be relocated in an area that we're all in agreement to. So thank you, Mayor Reportoff.
Thank you very much. So what we're looking at today are the options that they endorse the ODA agreement, and the second option, and part B, that council appointed member of council to the project management committee. And of course, option 2 is that request additional information. So Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mayor Reportoff. I would move option number 1, that the council endorses the Vesuvius Airport Development Agreement. And I just had a guy come to me this week that I sent to Rob and Mr. Harris. So it's looking to put in a
Can't hear you.
first plan.
Okay, so you're moving option 1A.
Yeah.
Okay, is there a
Okay.
seconder?
Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I support option A as well, but I do want to make a few comments and perhaps an amending motion. Item 3.3 of the proposed agreement says that ODES acknowledges and agrees the town shall not be required to contribute any funds whatsoever to the project. So it's not required. In the grant application, there's the ODES and its partners committed to contributing $40,000 to the project budget. The grant application also points out quite clearly that the result of the project, the ownership of the results of the project, will be the town. The town benefits quite significantly from this, And I think we can, and I will move that we put some skin in the game to the tune of $10,000 and suggest that would come from the economic development budget, which, looking at Mr. Zackel's report from a month ago, has ample funds.
Okay, good. All right. So I'm wondering if that was an alternative motion to the one that has been.
Well, I would see it as 1C, for
Okay.
example.
Does that make sense, Mr. Chabot?
You could do it that way, because 3.3, as Councilor Harvey notes, says the town shall not be required. Doesn't mean that it can't be any alternative to decide to make a contribution towards it. So rather than amending the agreement, a supplementary motion as 1C, I think would make sense.
Okay, thank you. So we're back to 1A.
All right, so we've had it moved and seconded that we go with 1A, that we endorse the agreement. Did you have a question about that?
No, I want to copy
Okay.
one scene.
All right, let's vote on that first. All in favor of 1A? Thank you. And 1B, Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mayor McCord. I'd like to nominate Councillor Harvey as our representative, the council representative.
On the Project Management Committee. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Bennett.
That's you.
Are you accepting that? If you.
Yes, I'm agreeable.
Okay, thank you. So is there any other concerns about this? All in favor of Councillor Harvey being appointed? Thank you very much. Now, you wanted to do a 1C.
Yeah, I would make a motion that the town contribute $10,000 to the project to be funded from the economic development account.
Okay, do we know how much,
There's more than enough funds for that,
Yeah.
Your Worship.
how much have they already put in? I don't see that in the report. How much?
I think the budget anticipates a $40,000 contribution.
That's correct.
To be.
And it was gonna come from Odes and possibly a commercial charter
Correct.
airline service.
Okay, so this would contribute towards the 40, if
No.
that's what the
This
idea.
would be in addition to the
Addition.
40, in
Addition.
addition to the 542 contributed by the province.
It would be-
Yes.
Is that what you okay with that then, Councillor Harvey? That.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I understood from Mr. Harris, having spoken to him recently, that you know, they're funding, they're proposing, and in order to make the grant application attractive, that they put some skin in the game to the tune of $40,000. Where they're going to get that money from their own coffers or from their partners. So, you know, whether it's part of the 40 or in addition to the 40, I'm not really, you know, concerned. I would like to see the town make a contribution, but, you know, perhaps as part of the 40, but I don't think we need to specify that.
Okay, well, we will, so go ahead, Councillor
I
King.
got a comment here. I can't necessarily support this 10,000 at this time. These projects seem to run over, and down the road, they might be asking for some money. I don't really see the value of the $10,000 at this time, when it sounds like they've got sufficient money to finish this project, as long as they come up with their 40,000.
Well, it's to help them come up with the 40,000.
Well, they're supposed to come up with 40 without us giving them any money.
Well, they will if we don't give them any money. Sure.
These-
It's our airport. It's our airport, and I think skin in the game is required.
So this would contribute towards the 40,000, sounds like 10,000 from us and 30 from.
Like me clarity.
Yeah, I know it. I think it's a bit confusing still. Go ahead, Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mayor McCord. Yeah, this is a tough one for me. When we talk about skin in the game, the town has contributed financially to that airport getting to where it is. I don't know what the exact dollar value is, but it's hundreds of thousands of dollars in development over a long period of time. And so we have lots of skin in the game right now, and I don't see the benefit of contributing another 10,000 to it. So I guess maybe it kind of looks like I made up my mind already, but And just, we have given a lot over a long period of time to get that airport to where it is. And to me, that's sufficient contribution to this project.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna second the motion, and basically the reason why is that I feel this group would work really hard to get that funding and try and get the airport going. And I think we need to show our support to them. And they've won another grant, they've done a lot of work, and it's all with volunteers. And so I agree with Mr. Harvey that we should back them and show them that we're there to help support them.
Well, I'm kind of torn on this one too. I totally agree that we have provided a lot of money over the years. And there are several studies to go back to prove what we have done. I understand the reason for supporting this application. But I'm just wondering whether we'd be better off to hold off on support. Because it says that in there, not be required to contribute. We could at some point, I suppose, contribute because that gives us that option. It doesn't say we won't, it says we could. I'm not quite sure how to think about this one. I think what we'll have to do is we have a motion on the floor that we go with option 1C that says we would contribute $10,000 towards this project. Is that what the motion says, Mrs. Shelton?
Yeah. The town commits $10,000 to the project from the economic development.
From the economic development. Yes, go ahead.
I just want clarity. If this was passed, is this on top of the 40 they're supposed to bring to the table, or is this part of the 40,000? Because my understanding clearly was they were going to come up with 40,000 themselves.
I think they could decide their commitment to the province was to raise 40,000 one way
That's-
or another.
That was
And
the
if
commitment.
10,000 of it came from the town,
Oh,
that would move them towards, or if they'd already secured 40, they might welcome the little bit of flexibility that an additional 10,000 would provide them.
Absolutely, I'm sure they would welcome it.
Go ahead,
Just another question. But aren't we kind of the cart and the horse? Haven't they already received the money?
Yes.
Now we're
Yeah, that's why they gotta get going. They gotta
Yeah,
break
they've
ground
already
on this
received
one.
the money, so I mean, the commitment's always already in writing. So I guess they got to the end of the year to come up with 40,000, and what happens to the grant?
Yeah, I'm kind of confused about that as well. If they've already received the money, what is the 40,000?
The $40,000 was to demonstrate their commitment to the project. So the province is counting on that $40,000 is being contributed to the project, yes.
I agree. It's a little confusing because it doesn't exactly state that in here. Okay, so we are at 1C, and the motion is on the floor to contribute 10,000 from economic development funds for this. All in favor? Against? Thank you. That was a 3-2 vote.
In favor.
Thank you. Is there anything else on that issue? No. Next is the building permit for the town of Vesuvius. And the building permit for the month of August amounted to $2.793 million, which is quite a lot. And there are several renovations, some single-family dwellings. And interesting that 3 of the single-family dwellings have suites in them. So that is to accommodate renters or family, or do we know? It's up to.
Coming to a conversation near you.
Okay,
Technically, for long-term renters,
okay, well,
As
that
per
would be,
zoning.
that's.
as per the zone. Thank you, CEO.
That's a good thing. Okay, so interesting that to total to date, is $22 million. That's quite a lot in a year where we've been kept inside. Good, thank you very much. Is there anybody had any more comments on that? Could we then have a motion, please, that the building inspector report for the month be received? Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Harvey, all in favor? Thank you. And the next is the general net payroll, Sun Bowl Arena financial accounts. To report on expenditures from accounts payable and payroll information for council to receive. General cash requirements of $563,417.44. Sun Bowl cash requirements of $5,189.71. And net payroll accounts of $203,080.57. So I would need a motion, please, to accept the balances in those funds. Thank you, Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Bennett, all in favor. Thank you. Now we'll go on to bylaws, and the first is a zoning amendment bylaw, Ms. McKay.
Thank you, Mayor McCordock. So this project is in consideration of a property located at Olympic View Drive. The owner is Fraser Creek Developments and the applicant is the same. Council will recall that we did visit this most recently during a public hearing. So the purpose of this report is to request that council consider third reading of zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.135. The bylaw, if adopted, would allow for a strata lot subdivision with a mix of single family and two family dwellings. So the applicant is proposing to develop the site with a mix of single and two family dwellings, and the subject property is 2.89 hectares in size. Proposed strata development will be required to comply with the Forest of Towns subdivision development servicing bylaw. And staff had been already working with the previous owner of this property and met with operational services staff and the town's engineer on reviewing the draft servicing plan. And your attachment 3 to this report indicates the 3 housing forms being proposed, inclusive of single family homes, walk-up duplex units, and walk-out basement duplex suites. So the zoning bylaw number 1085 amendment is required as the property is currently zoned for single family homes only, and the proposed R3 low density residential zone allows for single family dwellings on properties with a minimum lot size of 557 square meters, and 2 family dwellings on properties with a minimum lot size of 835 square meters. So the OCP supports this proposal, which encourages that outward expansion be directed to the hillside areas outside of the ALR as much as possible in areas that are already serviced. So this property will require a hillside development permit as part of the development or as part of the subdivision process. And that would address slope stability and possible mitigation to address issues related to the steep slopes. Now, a public hearing was held on August 10th, and the minutes are attached to your report. As per the COVID protocols, the meeting was held virtually. Notification of the meeting was given in accordance with the Local Government Act. Written comments from residents in the area indicated concerns related to increased traffic, concerns about access to public lands beyond, and concerns about further geotechnical inspections and possible rock slides. Now, 2 people did sign into the virtual public hearing and only 1 member of the public spoke. That person was also concerned about the stability of the rock and about blasting in the area, and also mentioned the possibility of impact on the bat population above the site. Since that time, I have spoken to the province, and they are not particularly concerned about impacts to the bat population, but I have advised the applicant that the geotechnical engineer should address that as part of their blasting schedule. So the director did provide a couple of comments at that meeting with respect to slope stability, noted that the applicant would be required to complete additional studies, including additional geotechnical studies, and also provided information at that time, you will recall, on the conditions under which a soil removal permit would be issued, and that also requires the applicant to retain the services of a geotechnical engineer on site during major activities. Staff is of the opinion the proposed development is in keeping with the spirit of the OCP, and the new subdivision will contribute to the housing demand in our town. So, pardon me, implications for the community, the proposed amendment and subsequent strategy subdivision will enable additional housing for our community. Now, following a successful rezoning process, subdivision process would follow inclusive of development permit for the steep slopes, and the development does not require issuance of a form and character development permit, but the applicant is supportive of working with the town to ensure the character of the neighbors maintained. No impacts to the budget associated with this report. Following third reading amending bylaws, our town staff will work with the developer to ensure the geotechnical covenants are prepared and all the other issues or items required as part of the storm removal permit, and also be working with Mr. Brownstein on servicing issues for the site. And then the proposed amendment is consistent with the town's approach to sustainability, as the area is of course already serviced and was slated for future development. Options before council today, option number 1, that council grant third reading, the zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.135. Item 2, or option 2, council requests clarification before moving forward, or option 3, council defeats the bylaw third reading. And staff are recommending option number 1. Thank you, Mayor McGrath.
Thank you, Ms. McKay. Councillor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to ask Mr. Bernstein, is there any issues around servicing this property that moves forward?
Not at this time, no, thank you.
So we don't see us having to put any infrastructure, the developer would pay for everything?
Everything's pre-serviced a lot, so that you started development moving forward, so all water, sanitary and storage there.
They're at their corner,
Yeah.
not only up around.
No, right at the point of intersection to our road.
So just that, not to each house, of course.
Yeah, so that's the developer's requirements to service the property.
All of it.
Yeah, within the strata.
Thank you.
Okay,
So there's
thank
no
you.
cost.
Thank you. Councillor Rhodes.
I'll move the staff recommended option number 1.
Thank you. There's seconder, Councillor Bennett, thank you. Any other questions or concerns? I just want to say, first of all, thank you, Ms. McKay, for looking at all of the issues that were brought up and for dealing with those. I appreciate your attention to those details. Okay, all in favor of the motion? Thank you very much. Okay, and next is the zoning amendment bylaw of 5816 51st Street, Ms. McKay.
Thanks again, Mayor McGrath. So you'll recall, we just visited this at a recent council agenda and had a public hearing and third reading. So we're looking today, pardon me, for fourth reading for property located at 5816 51st Street. Now the amending bylaw, if adopted, will offer safe self-storage warehouse to be added to the M3 zone as a site-specific use on the subject property. Now the owner is Lawrence Ingenthron and Pamela Schrower, and the applicant is Sterling Pacific Holdings. Now the subject property is again located in M3 or special industrial zone, which allows for a mix of commercial and industrial uses. And the applicant is proposing to build a self-storage warehouse facility. And the official community plan has designated this property as general commercial, and the proposed commercial use of the property, it would therefore be in conformance with the long-term goals of the OCP, and no amendment to the OCP is required. This property is identified in the town's OCP as being within commercial development permit area, and the purpose of the CDPA is to promote quality urban design for commercial developments appropriate to our community context. So new buildings are to be compatible with the massing of the established streetscape. So development permit guidelines promote visually attractive buildings that do not overcrowd their own sites. Landscaping plans approved by the town are required to help soften the streetscape. The proposed buildings and landscape plan are aligned with the CDPA guidelines and have been designed to enhance the streetscape for the area. So the public hearing was held again on August 24th. 2 members of the public joined the virtual meeting, but no one spoke. Staff are of the opinion that this proposed text amendment is appropriate for this site and are therefore in support of the proposal. Next steps in the process will be to ensure that the building plans are aligned with the development permit, and the collection of development cost charges and landscaping deposit is a requirement of issuance of the building permit. So the building or the development permit would lapse if, for 2 years if construction was not substantially commenced. So options before council today are number 1 in 2 parts. First, that council adopts the zoning amendment by number 1085.138, that is option 1A, and 1B is council authorized issuance of development permit 21-09, or option 2, which is council defeats the zoning amendment by 3rd readings, and staff are recommending option 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Hilton, does do 1A and 1B have to be voted
Yes,
on
It's
separately?
separate.
Thank you. Okay, is there, yes, go ahead, Councilor King.
I'll move option 1A. And then bylaw.
All right, is there a seconder? Councilor Rhodes, any questions on that one? Concerns? All in favor? Thank you. And, Councilor Rhodes,
Perhaps I'll move, stop recommended option 1B.
thank you that we authorize the issuance of the development permit. There's a seconder for that one. Thank you, Councilor Bennett. Yes, go ahead.
If this moves forward, are they looking to start right away or wait till spring?
They'll be looking to start right away. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Councilor King.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So it's been, option 1B has been moved. Is there any concerns? Could we take a vote on that, please? All in favor? Thank you. All right. And next is the Ms. McKay, is it this you again? Yes, the official community, Meadowlark Phase 3.
Thank you, Mayor McCardoff. Mayor and council, it's a pleasure to be here with you today to bring forward Meadowlark Phase 3 for final adoption. So council will recall that Jasvinder and Kamelji Ajla own the property located on at 74th Avenue at 10105, and that Dexter Harabi, planner for WSP Consulting Services, was the applicant. It's been a while since I've been in front of you with this particular application, as it also took some time to get through the Agricultural Land Commission. But the purpose of this report is to request that council consider final adoption of OCP plan bylaw number 1230.26 and final adoption of zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.128, and also authorize issuance of development permit 21-07. So council will recall this particular property is within the Southeast Meadowlark Plan area, and it's currently occupied with a single family home which faces 74th Avenue. Older greenhouses have been recently removed, and also the property lies north of the proposal for phase 2 of the Meadowlark Plan area, and the two of them basically will be developed together. And if you've noticed, there's also big machines landing on phase 2 this coming Friday, so take note of that as well. So lots of stuff happening in town this fall. So the subject property is within the Southeast Meadowlark Plan area, and it has been in excess of 5 years since it's been used for agricultural purposes, and implementation of the Southeast Meadowlark Plan was of course contingent on including an intensive residential development zone within the town zoning bylaw, and the IRD zone was designed specifically to meet the vision of the plan by allowing for a mix of residential uses within this area. So in this particular area, you're allowed to have small lot, single detached housing, 2-family duplex housing with low-rise apartments, etc. So now, with respect to the OCP, the Southeast Meadowlark lands were pre-identified in the OCP as a potential future growth area. And the Agricultural Land Commission recognized the area has already been cut up into scattered pieces so that it wasn't as fruitful, pardon the pun, for agricultural uses. That was not intended. However, the commission required that a plan be submitted for their review, which included a broad range of suitable land uses like mixed housing forms and tenures. They wanted to know about edge planning, road patterns, etc. So in order to meet the minimum densities as per the Meadowlark Plan, the development proposal was required to achieve a density of at least 30 units per hectare. So with a developable area of 0.9 hectares, this particular proposal needed to meet meet that density requirements by having a minimum of 27 residential units. So what they're doing here is they're actually having 30 units on 19 lots, while having 8 single families, nine single families with 2 suites, and then 2 duplexes, which is 4 units. So as per the Metal Art plan, you'll also recall that 15% of the total number of residential units within each of the phases of the Metal Art area must be entered into a near market housing program. And at the time of subdivision approval, the developer will be required to register the housing agreement on the title of each of the homes to be entered into the program. In this particular case, as in phase 2, that means 5 residential units. So the developer in this case will be having all of the duplex units, which will be level entry duplexes, registered into the program, and they will be held as rental units. So in this particular case, we're having 4 accessible rental units, and then 1 of the single family homes will also be entered into the program. And that's yet to be determined whether that will be rental or for sale, but that will be decided as part of once we register it on title as part of the subdivision. So now, once registered on title, the agreement for the owners of the near market rate homes is that they must retain them for a minimum of 5 years. For the rental program, it must be 10 years. So the executive committee for the Agricultural Land Commission granted approval for this proposal on June 18th, 2021. And then once, and we discussed this previously, once they grant that approval, they actually have 60 days to reconsider it. So that brings them to August of 2021 that they have till then to retract. So between August 18th and now, myself and the developer have been working to make sure that we can meet the requirements of the ALC, which is construction of the wood fence along the ALR boundary, planting of a 3-meter wide vegetative buffer, and the registration of the restrictive covenants on titles abutting 74th Avenue for the purpose of acknowledging their adjacency to agricultural uses. So as part of this development, of course, compliance with the subdivision development servicing bylaw is required, and of course, the town's engineer and the director of operations have also been in discussions with the applicant and their engineers in regards to servicing. So staff are in support of the proposed development, which is considered to be further implementation of the Metal Art plan. The plan itself had extensive community review and has been designed to help address community housing needs by providing a variety of housing forms and tenures within a limited land base. With respect to implications, the community again benefits from additional units being provided through the town's near market housing program. Organizationally, the preliminary development proposal package has been forwarded to outside agencies, and the zoning bylaw amendment was approved by the Ministry of Transportation on May 17, 2021. There is no impact to the budget this time, but further consideration may be given to improving road access along 74th Avenue, although I suspect this would probably be done once all the homes were built out in the area. We may consider that. Mr. Brownstein and I will be talking more about that, I'm sure. So significant dates. So the applicant will have 2 years to substantially commence the work. Once a development permit has been issued, they're pretty much ready to go and chomping at the bit. The proposal helps address community sustainability goals by providing additional housing forms and tenures. Now, options before council today. Option number 1 in 3 parts. 1A, council grants for final adoption to official community plan amendment bylaw number 123.26 2020, and B, council grants final adoption zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.128, 2020, and C, council authorizes issuance of development permit 21-07. Or B, council requests additional information, or C, council defeats the bylaw at third reading, and of course, staff are recommending option number 1.
Thank you very much. Ms. McKay, the last time you brought this particular amendment back, or this property back, it was to adjust the road width. That was fairly recently, right? It was to reduce the.
Phases 2 and 3.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor McCarter. So
So that's been done.
yes.
Okay.
It was just a dedicated right away, not the
That-
actual road.
Right, sorry, yes.
And thank you, and just to clarify, the plan of subdivision indicated on attachment 3 to your report shows that dedication at 15 meters.
Right, good, thank you very much. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. Couple of questions. Do we get any green space in this development?
No, we don't, but we will get a contribution to the, our 5% dedication cash in lieu.
Okay, and the second question, can you just explain lot 10 to me on your map there?
Pardon me, lot 10?
Yes, those other two blocks.
Okay, so this plan's been updated since here. This is now 2 lots. And there's two duplexes on there. Now,
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
so this shows a 3-plex. We're now doing 2 duplexes,
So four units.
4 units at level grade entry.
Okay, and I guess those two little gray spots are driveways. is that
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Any, go ahead, Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll move the staff recommend adoption 1A.
The OCP amendment, okay, is there a seconder for that?
correct?
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. About option 1B. The zoning. Go ahead, move option 1B. Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Rhodes, thank you. Any concerns about that? All in favor? Thank you. And 1C.
Yes, I'll move 1 too.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Harvey, is seconding that? So we authorize the issuance of development permit 21-07. All in favor? Thank you very much. So that's done.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And for further clarification for Councillor King, if you look in the development permit, you can see lots 7 and 8 are now showing that the new layout. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
So, the next item we have on here is the report from the South Okanagan Aquatic Center Advisory Committee. And it's quite well presented in there. 3 of us present have been at those meetings. Go ahead, Councillor Rose.
Did we miss?
No, we removed.
We've taken that one out, yeah, at the beginning. So, the advisory Aquatic Center Advisory Committee meeting was held on September the 1st. It's there's a fair amount of detail in here. I do know that our next sort of step was to have a draft survey questionnaire. And I think the group is working on that right now. And it's going to be available for people in all of the communities to fill in. We did have a look at the one that they had presented, and there was a few concerns about it. And so I think they were just going to go back and redo it or adjust it a little bit. But it does say in here that it should have been out by the middle of September, which is now. So maybe things always take a little bit longer than we think. Any questions for the committee members? That would be Councillor Bennett and Councillor King are people that are on that as the committee. No? All right, so could we receive that report as information, please? Councillor King, Councillor Bennett. Thank you very much. All in favor? Good, thank you. And next we will have the CAO report, but he said it was going to be short and sweet this month.
Your worship, thank you. The moment we've all waited for. Short report. Yeah, I've been, had some time off in the last couple of weeks, so a little bit of a shorter report, but still some items to note. Community services, the fall leisure guide is now available. I've seen hard copies in the office here and in other facilities. And it's available online. There may be some changes to the program offering. This council is probably all too well aware that unfolding pandemic situation continues to impact our operations, public access to programs and facilities and services, constantly changing again, yet again, just yesterday. The staff have been busy updating signage and utilizing the province of BC's COVID-19 vaccine passport where required for program services. I think we'll try to put together a little bit of information to publish on our website to make clear, but again, those rules continue to evolve as, well, just recently the regional restrictions, particular to interior health, were repealed. And then the effect of the mask and face coverings order and COVID vaccines changes depending upon user group type and age and the type of activity. So it's all very confusing. If people have questions, they should call ahead. For example, to attend at the gym in the Sonora Center, you have to have a vaccine passport or you'll be turned away. So we're continuing to monitor that. Despite that, Elections Canada has the general voting day at the Sonora Center, Monday, September the 20th. You don't need a COVID-19 vaccine passport in order to attend to cast your vote. The advanced voting days are over now. The World of Corporate Services has been really busy with job postings and interviews for positions, and we've done some minor adjustments to fill positions that became vacant and revise some job descriptions and the like, so that's been keeping the director busy. She also coordinated with our occupational health and safety consultant crew talks on a new working alone procedure and the town's communicable disease exposure control plan, which again is probably we've suggested some further refinements, even though the OH&S committee had already approved it again today. So those things continue to impact our operation. Financial Services has been busy working with the departments on preparation of operating and capital budgets for presentation to council a little bit later this year. Making preparations for a tax sale. The last Monday in September, I believe, is when they're to be held, 10 a.m. in the council chambers. There is one property that may go to tax sale, but indications are that someone may clear that up so it doesn't as well. So staff have been successful in helping people clear up their delinquent and arrears accounts, and there hasn't been a tax sale in the town of Vesuvius in a very long time, and so that's a good thing for all concerned. Fire department doesn't have a report this week. Chief has taken a little bit of time off after a busy summer. Planning and development, they're continuing to work and finalize proposals for a variety of development proposals in the community, some quite large, some small. As Director McKay noted earlier, proposals for increased density over on 89th, I believe, right, next to Legion Beach. And so those take an inordinate amount of time, actually. It's the complexity and negotiation that needs to take place with the developer and understanding of the town's requirements can take up a lot of time. A couple new business license applications were received. Bylaw services, things have slowed down a little bit in the community after Labor Day. The activity at the Gold Trailer parking lot is slowing down. We're scheduled to close that facility on the 15th of October again. That seems to be about as late as there's any demand for it. We certainly have the flexibility to keep it open later, but the October 15th date captures the Thanksgiving weekend each year, which for a lot of people might be the end of the voting season for them. Bylaw continues to deal with unsubject properties. As council noted earlier, building permit values thus far this year are now in excess of $22 million, which is a very big year for Soyuz and bound to grow. There's a good number of others awaiting finalization. We could quite easily hit $30 million this year. Operational services, we welcomed a new exempt utility superintendent to the department, Mike Lang. Comes to us by way of City of Kelowna most recently. He's been with us for a couple of weeks now, settling into his routine and his job, and really pleased with him fitting into the organization that he has. They've been working to address some WorkSafe BC orders with respect to our water and wastewater systems. There are some operating procedures that needed to be refined and some capital requirements to bring those facilities up to standard. So they continue to work on those. Some of them are longer term items and some of them are easier to rectify. And so council will probably see some of those items in the capital budget proposals for next year. The Vesuvius Lake water main crossing a directional drill under the channel from the south end of Gyro Park to near the, is that the Holiday Inn? To the Holiday Inn. Bound to commence later this month. It shouldn't be too disruptive to people's ability to enjoy the park and the beach. Doesn't disturb the lake, so that's good. As mentioned earlier, the site servicing capacity review is underway. Thanks again to council for approving the improvements to Legion Beach. I think the community will welcome those improvements and be the vast improvement. Like we said earlier, there'll be a lot more use there. So a fleet assessment is nearing completion, which will include the recommendations for financing and use of reserve funds and debt to finance the entire city fleet, inclusive of fire department operating equipment. On that note, Victor Brunstein is also working with the fire department, preparing the process to issue an RFP for a new water tender, which will come to council to budget approval soon. It's been in the plan for the next year already. As part of the Superior Shuttle Tanker Accreditation Program, which would hopefully lower insurance rates in the rural fire protection district. Yeah. That's it, your worship. I always tell you it's going to be short and then go on.
No, yeah, thank you very much. So we didn't really expect even anything that long because CEO Chabot has been on holiday, much needed for a while. And we did notice that he continued to answer his emails and he wasn't supposed to. However, that's how dedicated he is to his role. Thank you. Could we have a motion to receive the CAO report? Councillor King, Councillor Work, all in favor. Thank you. So we'll go on to council reports. Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Was on a Zoom meeting September 1st to deal with the Aquatic Center. It's kind of an interesting project as we're moving forward. The mayor just mentioned there will be a questionnaire going out to the public. So hopefully everybody that's on this website today will listen and maybe give some input. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was on the same meeting and had another meeting I had pretty exciting, thanks to SAO. Basically, at the UBCM, we got kind of sidetracked on meeting one of the ministers we planned on, and they sent us to a different ministry at the last moment. He managed to get us involved with it. So thanks to that, we met with Director of Recreation Trails and Sites of BC. And also Roy Russell, MLA, Mark Woods from RDOS, and John Hopkins, who is the regional director of through the Lands of Forestry. And basically, this was really a normal meeting because after years of discussion and reluctance of senior governments to allow the Old Kelly Valley rail line on the west side of Bass Lake to be open to the public, there's now a light ahead at the end of that tunnel. They've been engaged now, thanks to that meeting. All the partners are on there. So basically now we're looking at putting an agreement together with provincial and regional governments to draft a park plan. They've in 2019, Recreation Sites and Trails BC commissioned an environmental review that determined that the rail bed at the west side of the lake can actually be opened up as long as a habitat on either side of the trails protected, with mitigation efforts identified in the report. So basically what doing this draft park plan does is it starts that engagement because it's been sitting there for 10 years. And basically the Air Force will be working with Canada Wildlife and also the OIB with the habitat plan and ecosystems. So we're, first step will begin a qualified trail consulting, and then along the way, the trail development funding. Of course, if you have a plan in place, then when funding comes due, you can jump in there. So thanks to that, we could become a very big bike tourism in Oliver. So it's major news. You'll see a press release that went out. And it was approved by our CAO. And thank you, Alan.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank
Went
you.
up today?
Yeah.
Yeah, some good news there.
Good. Thank you very much. Bennett, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last Wednesday was the September Library Board meeting. The significant agenda item was approving next year's budget. There was an increase, 1.5% or so, but the forecast based on population and assessment growth is that the individual levy for next year will go down somewhat for most, if not all, users.
Good, thank you. Well, that's good news.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Rhodes.
I'll pass.
Okay. So I was away at the last meeting, so I was visiting my grandson, who continues to send me pictures on a daily basis. So how lucky am I? A couple of things. I attended last week. The OIB had wanted to honor the Mexican firefighters before they returned to Mexico. And I went up to where everybody's camped up at the Oliver Airport. And the OIB put on a very nice presentation to the Mexican firefighters, and a couple of songs, and accompanied by drums, and a presentation of a little package for each of the firefighters that had an OIB keychain in, and they gave me one as well, and a poem. And I think it had been written by somebody at the OIB, but they had written it out in the Silk language, I believe, and they'd also translated it into Spanish for the firefighters. And there was also a little medicine bag that was included. So each one of the firefighters got this before they went down to, I think it was Chilliwack, and then they were being flown home. So it was very nice. The mayor of Oliver and I were there, plus one of the councillors from Oliver, and the RDOS was also their representative, and Rick Knoll, Area C director. So I was also on last week an International Vesuvius Lake Board of Control meeting. We have them quarterly, and I think you will notice that the lake levels of Vesuvius Lake are a little lower than usual. They did not reach up to 912 feet above sea level this year. However, I noticed that it went up slightly after the rain the other night. So one of the things that is being done is, and it's on OIB as well, the OBWB, Okanagan Basin Water Board, there's a bathymetry project, and I had no idea what that meant, but what it is, it's they're taking photographs and LiDAR of about 10 meters underneath the water. And so they've done it in Lake Okanagan. They've now going to finish doing Vesuvius Lake, and because 1/3 of the lake is in the States, they applied to the Washington, I don't know, Department of Ecology or something, and they actually have some money to continue that. So the entire lake will be done, and so that will be very helpful in planning things and looking at what type of sediment and weeds and rocks and you know, all those kinds of people's you know, pipes that they've got out into the water. So that will all be on one database. So that's a very good thing. I was also on 2 Okanagan Basin Water Board meetings last week. One of them was just our regular monthly meeting, and one of them was the annual report. And that annual report has, at the AGM, is called Waves of Change. It's an excellent report. Of course, as the chair, I have a very small part in there, but it's amazing that all of the programs that OBWB have done are explained with wonderful pictures. It is online right now on OBWB. Everybody can have a look at it. Because we ask the ministers to get involved, the provincial ministers and federal sometimes, to get involved in protecting our waters, and dealing with milfoil and zebra quagga and lake levels and everything. I suggested to our executive director, Anna Warwick-Sears, that she have some of the copies of this printed and given to the ministers. I think they would be very impressed by all of the work that is being done. And last year we had the 50th anniversary of OBWB. It's unusual because there aren't very many things being done like this anywhere in Canada. It's pretty amazing that the Okanagan Valley has had such a good response, and people often don't know about it, and it's pretty good. So I would suggest that you go on OBWB and read it. You'll be very impressed with what you read on there. Vaccine clinics are still available Mondays and Wednesdays at the health center. If you have not had a vaccine, or the second one, you can still get that very easily to go down there and make sure that you sign up, because of course, as the CEO pointed out, the vaccine passport is going to be necessary to go into events and to restaurants. So the September the 26th is the last day that you can use your little card. You have to have it. You have to have it on either on your phone, or you can contact them and they will send you a print of the QR code, which you can take with you. So that will be good. The other thing I was going to mention about the election is that the 4 advanced polls are closed now. I understand that the next time, if you haven't voted, you cannot go to the office across the street and do that. They have information over there in the museum, but you cannot vote now until September the 20th. And I would recommend that people look at the voter card that you got in the mail, because it will tell you where you should go and vote. Most of the polls are at the Sonora, but I understand that there are a few polls at the Elks Lodge. And it's because they didn't have enough room. And that was somebody who works for elections in Vesuvius that told me that. I know in Oliver as well, they have a couple of areas. So please look at your voter card and check to see what poll number you are and where you go to actually cast your vote, if you have not already done so. And I know lots of people have already pre-voted.
At the back door.
Pardon me?
You gotta go in the back door, it's in our center.
The back door, yes. You have to go, you can't go in the front door. There's a big sign on that, for sure.
Right.
So please check that out. And while several people have been very concerned about this election being called at this time, if you look at the news, it's our job to make sure that we use our right to vote and go in and have your say. So I think that was, I know one more thing I was going to say is with the Mexican firefighters, the Spanish word for that is bombero. So a firefighter in Spanish is a bombero. We found that out. Okay, I think that was everything that I had. Oh, one more thing is this week I'm attending UBCM, which is the Union of BC Municipalities. We normally, council goes to either Vancouver, Victoria, or Whistler. This year it is being done virtually again, so when I'm not here, I'm at home on my computer dealing with UBCM issues. It's not quite the same. It was more fun to be down there and meet people in person. So hopefully next year. And that's all that I have for now. I would now like to close this part of it, and I'm Mrs. Hilson, pursuant to section, we're going to move into the in-camera section. Pursuant to section 91 of the community charter, as part of the council meeting may be closed to the public. The subject being considered relates to or is one of the following. Section 91M, a matter that is under another enactment, is such that the public may be excluded from the meeting. Or 2, section 91C, labor relations or other employee relations.
And then section E.
Acquisition, disposition, expropriation of land.
Sorry, I didn't have that written down.
That's on, that was on the motion.
We added that when we approved the agenda.
Oh, sorry, that section 91E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements. That's.
Yep.
If the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. So, do we need a motion to move into that?
Yes.
Are we okay? All right, could we have, thank you, Councillor Rhodes, Councillor King, all in favor. Thank you very much.
Okay, just give me a second.